Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. I am Mystic Lee, and this is Giovanni here. He is joining me today on Mastering the Shadows as we dig into more of our darker guides. So, thank you, Giovanni, for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I like how I totally told you I was gonna clear the air, and then I'd introduce you, but instead, I guess I decided it was best to introduce you as we get started.
Yes.
So I'm horrible, I guess, at making plans like that. So thank you everyone for joining us. I am going to start by clearing the air. That way, as everyone joins in, we join in with our more clear and grounded part of our self-truth, which is great for connecting to any guides, whether it be light guides or dark guides or all the other rainbow guides in between. So, all right. So I'm going to start by just listening to the vibration of the bowl.
Definitely want you guys to breathe in slowly.
Breathing in and out as we allow ourselves to let go of any vibrations that we've picked up throughout the day that do not belong to our self-truth. Allowing for those tensions around our mind to drop and relax as we just listen to the vibrations of the bowl. Breathing in and breathing out as you allow for those vibrations to drop down from your head and down into your shoulders as you relax and release.
It's very refreshing.
Allowing for it to move down through your chest, through your back, and through your shoulders as you allow for it to continue to drop down. Allowing for it to drop down through your hips and through your knees as you relax all that stuff from the top all the way down as you're relaxing and releasing everything.
Feel the roots coming from your feet into the earth. Feel that relaxation throughout your body. All the energy blockages is unblocking, and then your energy is just freely flowing throughout your body.
Allowing for that energy to move all the way down through your feet as you let go as well.
Feeling that energy like the waves coming in, like the tides, and then it just flows right out. And come in as you breathe in, and then the waves go right out as you breathe out.
All right, so let's take another big deep breath in. And as you breathe out, make sure you breathe out with your mouth open and feeling that breath really massaging that back of that throat. Feeling that vibration relax and release. Hey, Samantha. Hey, Kimmy. Hey, Jennifer. Thank you for joining us. All right. So now that we've really relaxed and let go of any tensions that we have, we can now be more clear in the messages that we're having. And it's great no matter what type of messages that you're bringing in, but especially topics that maybe make us feel a little more on edge, like talking about really those dark guides, like Lucifer and Satan. And so I've asked Giovanni to come and join me on the show because he's had a bit more experience exploring working with those guides than I have. So, Giovanni, I think the big elephant in the room is a lot of people claim Lucifer and Satan are the same entity, while other people say that they are not the same entity. And I'd really love to hear your opinion on what that is and why you believe that.
So it's like, even though they're not so much as the same, in a way, they're like symbolic of light and dark. And so Satan is not necessarily like evil, like people think. Satan is more like a lesson of having that balance of yourself, being aware of the ego and not allowing the ego to take too much control of what you feel and how you think and your actions. And so, as Lucifer represents the higher self, as we know, like in Latin, it basically means light barrier. And so Lucifer just represents, like, there's the two angels on your shoulders, the good and bad. So there's the good angel, Lucifer, the bad one, Satan. So, we have to be mindful of the decisions that we make in our life. And as you know, the more positive things that we do in our life, obviously we're collecting more from our heart space and collecting more from our higher self. And as we chose to do something that's bad, you're bring your vibrations down to that lower self. So it's like Satan being, that fallen angel per se, and Lucifer being the angel that was up there. So, and it's metaphoric for us being, within that high vibration, that 5D, um, you know, when Lucifer chose to, go to battle and the heaven was just like metaphoric, it's basically saying like us falling from that higher consciousness and falling into this three-dimensional, mindset, the ego self, aka Satan, and which many people even call as the devil. So I personally don't necessarily see Satan as evil, but a lesson per se.
A
So,
lesson.
like, it's, life is a lesson, and we learn based on any type of action we take.
It's kind of like um when the obstacle comes, right? Like Satan's just there to create the obstacle. At the end of the day, it's still up to us to decide like how we're going to respond to it.
Right. Right.
It is. It feels a lot like a lesson. That's kind of how I've always read, like whenever I've read scripture, that was kind of the perspective I got was he was like the mischievous one to like create an obstacle that really at the end of the day was to test whether or not you had faith. Like
Right.
it's
Exactly.
you can have faith all day, but when it's tested, will you still have it or will you cave in?
Right. Exactly. And it's like you just want to make sure that are you still gonna stick with it. Like you can vibrate so high, coming from the heart space, and you go through your experience of ego death, but it could come back. Like it's temporary. It's a temporary experience. And when you experience ego death, we all wish that it was a permanent thing because it feels so good and you feel great. But it's like whatever any obstacles come in your way, regardless that you experience high vibration and ego death, you're still being tested. The universe, God, love, which whatever you want to call it, is still going to test you. And so, are you going to choose to, push someone back who may physically or verbally push you, or are you going to be the better person and then stay within your higher self, your heart space, and just walk away or try to resolve the situation like an adult? And so, it's a very beautiful thing if you think about it.
Yeah.
I would say most people would agree who had experienced the ego death and know exactly what I'm talking about.
Does anybody else who's tuned in? Hey Bonnie, hey Heidi, hey Tawny, hey Lisa. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments. Um, so there are actually quite a lot of guides, right? When it comes to kind of the shadows of like the of really all religions, right? But I think today we kind of want to focus a little bit more on the Abrahamic based ones, talking about Satan and Lucifer. So I do also have some cards to help us kind of navigate that with some free readings called the Tarot of Shadows.
Awesome.
So Giovanni, can you explain to us what this symbol means? Do you know?
The sigil of Baphomet. So now most people recognize like there will be like Hebrew characters like alphabets around the symbol, the sigil, and it's counterclockwise and it says Leviathan, but in general, each point, just like the right side up pentacle represents the elements, and but by it being inverted, it represents, understand that God is within. You are God, and so the sigil of Baphomet and inverted pentacle in general aren't really bad symbols, but obviously people wouldn't think so when they see it. Um, but it's understanding is key here. So, and that's what people.
I think it gets scary because it's inverted, right? Just
Yeah.
like just like how people don't like talking about dark truths,
Right.
right? It's like anything that's kind of what I feel like maybe not necessarily with Baphomet there, just because the pentacle is such a diverse occult symbol, right?
Right. Yep.
I feel like that's like a lot to do with what an inverted pentacle is. It turns things upside down, or it has you look at the dark side of reality.
Right.
And I think sometimes that can be difficult or triggering for people, regardless of what other else can be added to it. So what can you tell us a bit about Baphomet, as far as, because I know that there's like a whole cultural trend going on now, where it seems that there is a spiritual movement, and it seems like it's pretty diverse.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about what you might see in that cultural movement versus what you think is more the truth to Baphomet, or how someone can figure or connect to that truth themselves?
So most people, especially magicians who are of the left-hand path, will perceive Baphomet as actual deity. But from my personal understanding, Baphomet represents the duality of all things and how it all connects. Like it represents the elements as well. So you have the torch that represents the fire element, but it also represents enlightenment. And you can see a pentagram on his forehead that represents the elements. So that also tells you there. And then you have like the wings that represent air, the air element, and also represent freedom. And the freedom of the soul as who we are, and we're limitless. And then you have the goat head representing the animal, and the body represents the human aspect. And then obviously the breast for the feminine energy, and then the rod for the masculine energy, and then the scales for water element, and then sitting on top of the earth for the earth element, and the snakes that the caduceus going around the rod, um, also representing the kundalini obviously, and the light and dark, because in some images you see the serpents are white and black, and then you see the crescent moons, the waning and waxing crescent moons representing light and dark, and on his arms says coagulating salt for dissolving and solidifying, and then so it's like all of it, all these elements together representing like one thing, and it's like alchemical, basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of gathering. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of energy moving in this one entity, like just from
Right.
everywhere. But I
Yeah.
guess that makes sense when like the main thing is he's all about connecting everything, right? That would be a lot coming into one thing.
Definitely.
So it looks like we do have a few people who are ready for reading. So Michaela, I'm going to pick a reading for you, and I'm going to start with clearing the cards with the selenite. All right. So here is your card, Beelzebub and Astaroth. So I know. All right. So Giovanni, would you like to start?
Okay.
I know Beelzebub is something that I've come come across quite a bit, right? And I'm always
Yeah.
texting you. I'm like, what is this? I feel like it's around me again.
I think Beelzebub like you, and the funny thing is, Astaroth is like my main go-to daemon, on my main patron, and this is her sigil. So let me see what I can pick up off this card.
I feel like Beelzebub is like a messenger of secrets, like dark secrets, whispers. And he comes around like around the shit. Like when you don't really want to pay attention, you want to swat it away. And it's because he's like wants to leave secrets if you're paying attention.
Yeah, it's like I'm getting from that like things are like I'm hearing order, like things will fall into order, like justice or things that may seem mentally or emotionally unstable is going to become stable in your life over time. So for some people, it's already happening, and for other people, it's going to. Especially the fact that we just got through this Mercury retrograde, things are going to start feeling in order with the energies around us.
So how do you feel that this connects to Astaroth? I see Michaela's talking about she's going through a lot of pain right now, because someone she was really close to has passed away.
Very sorry on my condolences. So Astaroth seems to have like so many purposes. Especially like when a daemon is your patron, they could be for like limitless purposes, not just like one or a few things. But Astaroth is one of the main things people know. Astaroth is like that emotional consultant, that daemon who you express your emotions to, things that hasn't bothering you and such. So, Michaela, if you're going through this grief, then if you want to interact with Astaroth, definitely you could interact with him and let so much out that's been held in, and even if you like just need to cry and such. So Astaroth is very emotionally helpful, like a counselor.
Yeah, so a lot of people when they pass, they go through different like types of phases, right? So because Michaela's asking if we have any messages from her friends specifically, right? Here what I'm kind of getting is we're not pulling in that energy because we don't want to without his spirit's permission pull him into the shadows, right? Because
Right.
they're already going through shadows, right?
Right.
Physical death has a lot to do with shadows. And I am feeling here that connecting here to Azeroth is going to help you just kind of releasing those emotions that you have. A lot of these dark entities, they kind of, from my understanding, and Javoni, correct me if I'm wrong, they can kind of help like feed off that energy, kind of like when we breathe out air, how it's toxic to us, like that's like nutrition for trees. And again, when trees push off what's toxic to them, which is air, right, it helps to rejuvenate us.
Right.
I don't know if that's how you've connected with her, since I have not had that personal relationship. I haven't connected with her before, but when I'm connecting with dark shadow entities in general, I feel like there's like an energy exchange kind of like that.
Yeah. They definitely. It's almost like you could feel it such a dense way, but not in a bad way. But it's because like where their frequency is, so that's also why they work so fast. And so they definitely very helpful when it comes to transitioning to a new change.
All right. So here it looks like and Michaela, thank you for allowing for us to pull energy from you. What you're going through is a lot, right? That's a lot of energy there within itself, and that in itself is a lot of shadow energy. And so I really do hope that you can help navigate that energy and that it doesn't build up into chaos. And it sounds like you've been active in a very positive way in how you've been releasing that energy, because you said that you had a candlelight night. And those are really positive ways to help let that person know how much you cared and allow for that energy to transition as they're moving through their shadows, and you're also dealing with your own pain and shadow energy. So, all right, Samantha, I'm feeling drawn for a reading for you. clearing the cards. Giovanni, what's your favorite way to clear your cards when you use them?
I usually use Sage, and I usually will use Selenite as well, and clear quartz, and I'll also like use Reiki.
Okay. All right, what is this? The Centaur Chiron. I'm going to have to pull him up in the book. I know I've had him before. The Centaur is always kind of an interesting creature because he has such a mythological like history, not just here in like Abrahamic cards, but also like through Greek and Roman mythology as well. And then also if you're like a Hercules fan or a Xena fan, there's a lot of centaurs there as well. I've always seen them as like that representation of like accepting those that are so different from ourselves. So it says here, he is the son of Saturn and was notable through Greek mythology for his youth nurturing skills. He was born half horse, half human, as he was a son of Saturn. And he was taken in the form of the horse and impregnated by a nymph. So that's why he looks different. Let's see here. What is more of the card meaning? So again, this is talking about that black sheep, right? Those who are kind of different, right? Misunderstandings, estrangements, absorbent thought, but also having versatile personalities, a lot of charisma, carelessness, cause and effect. It's interesting because it's kind of pulling a little bit on some of those other ideas of balance that we were talking about earlier, but this seems a little bit more geared towards misunderstandings, that part of the shadows, right? Not necessarily something that's negative or has negative intention, but is coming from just being misunderstood because you're different.
It seems like a perfect card for that deck because like how left hand path is misunderstood because it's different, you know. And so it's best to, like I said, have an understanding of things, and it can, you know, be a lot more better. And what I sense from the card is not only someone's probably feeling like, you know, they're being singled out because they're different. When you come across things in your life, like if you transition to a new place, like maybe a new job or meet a new friend or somewhere, you may not be too open to them because of different energy, but you have to like allow yourself to come from your heart and your intuition instead of coming from the ego perspective on things, and you know, give them a chance so you can feel them deeply from the energy level instead of like what's looking, you know, from a superficial way.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes a lot of sense, especially like if you think about where on his body he parts between being human and horse. It's like right in between that solar plexus and that heart chakra, kind of depending on whose interpretation, right? And so I like how you bring up the workforce, right? Because that's like a place where we, right, collect our gold or interact with other people. That's where we can gain empowerment as we express ourselves with value into the world and through our heart, like you were describing. And so I find that to be really interesting as well. Yeah, Samantha is saying, I do have trouble letting situations and people in. Yeah. So yeah, just take that breath. And it's not always going to be easy, right?
Yeah. And it's like Centaur is like me being a Sagittarius and relates to that because sometimes I kind of I had to like remind myself to like just look beyond and then let people in because, you know, based on, you know, personal experience of, you know, betrayals and being treated badly for being different. So it's pretty ironic that card came out. So it's, I feel like I resonate.
Yeah, you can really relate to it.
Yeah.
That's what I love about doing group readings. I feel that's why I also have to put the card to the side because if I put it back in the deck, we're all so connected to this reading that's coming up, right? Because we're all here in that same vibration, and
Right.
we can all just like, I don't know, it. I love it. I guess I never really thought of a centaur though as like something of like the shadows, but I guess it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
can't imagine what would happen if a centaur appeared today. That would be wild, right?
I think the Harry Potter fans will go wild.
Right? The Xena freaks, that would be me. Be like, yes, they are real. Is your mother an Amazon woman? Because there's an episode where one of the Amazon women gives birth to a centaur, and kind of comes up in the episode. How did that happen? And she's like, cesarean. So I just think it's kind of funny, like how they still are really relevant in today's culture. And for those of you who have not seen Xena before, it is a TV series where they do express a lot of support for people who are Black sheep and who don't necessarily fit into the social norms. So yeah, centaurs are common. So all right, so who else would like a reading? All right, Mark, I'm feeling drawn to you. So Giovanni, what kind of deck do you like to use when you're doing shadow work, or do you just use the same deck for everything that you're doing?
I actually have this shadow work deck. I can't remember the name of it because it's rare that I use it. I think it's called a Shadow Mirror or something like that.
Okay.
It was a gift, a Christmas gift to myself a while back, so I really enjoyed it. It's a really nice deck, and I think some people who will come across it, I think they'll really like it as well. The art on there is phenomenon, and it's very detailed. It's straightforward of what you need to work on yourself, and it's just like 100% spot on for me.
That's awesome. Okay, Katrina says she sent some stars. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All right, Mark, I actually got 2 cards came out of the deck. Ooh. All right, so here is this upside right? Yeah, you have the embodiment of evil. And then next to it, we have Lady Shallot's mirrors. All right, so Giovanni, what's your first impression of this type of a combination?
Here, let's see.
I am feeling like mirrors is talking about illusions, right? So that's probably where some of this embodiment of evil is coming in from, right? I'm sorry, I'm like trying to get it in the. Which one should I do first?
You could do both. It's okay because I'm actually picking up on both. Just trying to find the right words to put it. It's like I'm seeing someone looking in a mirror and they're trying to like figure themselves out. Like there's that aspect of themselves that they may judge, and they're trying to look beyond that to see if they can understand themselves and understand their actions, and they're wondering, is that from a dark side of the aspect? Is that from trauma? Is that from things that
Yeah.
probably been holding in? And it definitely is related to the Ed card as well. And so they don't want to like be pulled into that mirror realm where it's like they're trapped and perceive themselves as someone bad. So they're trying to they're fighting to keep a positive perspective so they can.
So kind of like creating a self-image, right? That doesn't necessarily honor the self-truth. You
Yeah,
think that could be like an example of getting trapped in that type of a mirror?
right, and they're trying to not be trapped into any illusions of themselves, trying to understand
Yeah.
more better.
I think that's also getting harder with today's society, right? Because so many people want to put pressure on what's like
Right,
acceptable and what's not, right?
right.
And a lot of us are going to be tempted to probably do that, right? Put on a different persona or a different face
Yep.
or a different self-image in order to be accepted or in order to be able to perform what they want
Yeah.
to perform throughout the day. So while this might look really extreme, and it might sound odd. I'm sure a lot of us actually are going through this and experiencing it a lot more than we realize,
Yeah.
right?
And being authentic is like literally closer into their grip. They can grab that closer than they think. They need to like drop, that the ego, the mask, and then realize it's
Yeah.
really right there, right in front of them.
So, Rhonda is saying I own both Xena and Hercules. Me too. Xena fan for life. Yeah. So, is it for? So I guess a lot of people are saying both Katina and Samantha, their electronics are freezing. It might possibly be my end. I had some internet issues before we popped on, which is why we were a few minutes later, like 5 minutes later than normal. I had to reboot the system. So if anyone's having any glitches, I apologize for that. So I feel like I know between me and Giovanni, I don't feel like we're having any glitches. I'm not having any glitches from you.
I'm good to go.
Okay, good. Hopefully the playback won't have any glitches for anyone.
Yeah.
So what I think is kind of interesting is we were talking about the shadows, right? And we were talking about Lucifer and Satan. And I feel like the way we were expressing other ideologies around them, it wasn't quite as dark, right? As a lot of society makes it seem to be. But here, when we talk about embodiment of evil, right, that's a little bit more kind of like, in your face with some shadow work. So how would you express to someone, like, how do you really confront this ideology of embodiment of evil, and what do you think that really means? Because like I know here, obviously I would say embodiment of evil would probably be going against the self-truth. But is that really what embodiment of evil is, or is there more to it than that?
Um, Honestly, I will approach them by asking them like how they perceive evil. What is evil to them? Because like it's definitely a perception, and some people say there is no evil, and then some of us say there is, and it's how you see it. And light and dark is like both sides of the same coin, so it's like an illusion. Like the duality is an illusion, so it's really all the same thing because there's a lesson with both, and just like in the yin and yang, there's light within the dark, and vice versa. And so, by them understanding that, having that grasp, then they start to understand, why someone or themselves had done a certain action that could probably be perceived as evil to somebody else, and to them it may not seem so evil. But
Okay. Do you think that there are certain things in this world that can't be as easily seen as perspective like that? Do you think there are certain things that happen in this world that really within themselves are the like a universal embodiment of evil?
um, I believe that there's definitely some things like I can't say this person's name because I don't remember. But for example, there's like this one kid who got so deep into his ideology of what Satanism is. So it's pretty ironic that you asked me this and we're doing this. So I forgot this kid's name, but this is like this happened like sometime in the late '90s and such. He just kept doing so many things that people would consider as evil, and he was always on the run, which he actually got caught and was arrested, but then they had let him go for some reason, and he just continued his ways of murdering people, and then he gathered
I
people.
guess that's kind of like that Summer of Sam stuff, and uh, you know, what's that guy? The guy who lived on Skid Row, and right? I guess there's kind of like a pattern of that, right?
Could be, yeah.
Um,
I feel like a lot of these people have some kind of like definitely connection, and you notice like most of that stuff happened in the early days, and you're not hearing about it now in the modern day, which is pretty interesting. But it's like
Probably goes in waves, right? That light and that dark balance, right?
right, that
Until
like it definitely shifted. So especially as all of us are becoming more aware in this modern day.
that's really interesting. It's yeah. it's interesting kind of talk about it, right? Because I think that there are things that we do think are like universal embodiment, but at the same time, it also becomes perspective, right? Like, how do you see how that happened to you?
Right.
Talking about that with Beelzebub, I feel like there's like a bug now flying around me.
It
And that
works.
happens. I feel like every time his word name comes up, all of a sudden there's like a bug. Um, I feel like that is right when we're talking about guides, right? We mention their names and they start to come in, right?
Yeah.
Putting out that word out there. That's why we should be careful of who we're talking about and who we're connecting to, right? Of
Yeah.
both either the light or the shadows.
I feel
Because with him flying around, right? We already mentioned his name once, and
right.
like I said, likes to tell us dark secrets that we're not really supposed to know. um Okay, so who else would like a reading? So I guess some people were having issues with it being glitchy. Tawny said no. So yeah, for those of you who are having issues, I hope that we can clear that out. I guess that can't be too surprising, right? If we're talking about certain things that maybe is not as easy for some people to hear, right? The universe might be glitching, or maybe
Yeah.
something doesn't want you to hear something. Maybe
Right.
for your protection, maybe it's not your time yet, you know, or maybe something else, right? Mysteriously. All right, who else would like a reading? Miss Rooney over here says that she is a Centaur Sagittarius as well.
Awesome.
So not just you, Giovanni. That's great. All right, I see we've got like at least 5 people here. So let's chime in, guys. Don't be shy. And if you have any questions on anything that we're talking about, please feel free to put it in the comments. Maybe we need to clear the air since there was some glitchy energy, right? All right, Giovanni, I'm just gonna pull a card then, and tell me what you get from it. All right, the Black Mass. Ooh, what is the Black Mass?
I'm getting like a magician vibe from that one. It's like the Black Mass, and it's something. It's a ritual that started out in Spain, and so I'm getting like mysterious vibes, and it's like I'm feeling things coming from different directions, different energies, pulling in, pulling out, and so it's like someone could be, working their magic, and plus it is a full moon tonight, so could
Oh, is the full moon tonight?
Yep.
I've been really bad at keeping up with the moon recently. I've just been like so in the moment.
Yeah.
I'm pulling the card up to see what it says. I feel like something doesn't want me to talk about, because like as you start talking about, my throat started getting so itchy. All right. It's usually celebrated during the Witches' Sabbath, and it comes from a Latin mass meaning to worship the devil. And the book says it talks about using sex magic and these rituals with the Black Mass. Yeah. Oh, my throat. That's so weird. So I guess that's a question that maybe isn't Facebook or YouTube appropriate to answer, but the Black Mass with the sexual magic going on and all of that. I always wonder about like some of those secrets, right? And whispers and rumors that people have, right? About the Black Mask and what's really going on during them, right? Because it seems like it's they're hidden, right, in the shadows, which is different from like the light mass, right? And again, since we're talking about the Abrahamic religion, would be like the Messiah, right? The mass to celebrate the Messiah would be like the light. Or how would you put that, like for you, right? Because for you, would probably use Lucifer, right? Um, as using a light for a light mass, or how would you go about doing that?
Um, Working with sexual energy, I usually just tap into like that kundalini energy and just like breathe it with tantra and just like let it flow through my body. And I mean, usually people would do this with a partner, and there's those who do it alone. Some people do it with self pleasure, and not everybody. Like, I mean, the breathing. Uh, there is a daemon go by the name of Asmodeus, also known as Asmodee, and he's like that sexual type of daemon to work with when it comes to sex magic. And he teaches some techniques and whatnot. And I think there's another daemon, C-Tree, and it's not often I work with C-Tree, but C-Tree, I feel it's like a slow pace type of thing. So slow pace, and when it comes to like manifesting what you want with your sexual energy, and going down the list of how you should visualize something and that energy flow through you.
So would you say then when you're working with them that you're performing your own version of a black mass?
I would say yeah, because it definitely like working with your sexual energy. It definitely feels different than any other type of spell or forms of magic that you work with because you feel more isolated because like sex is like a very private thing. So it's like they want you to feel like it's more private, and it's like they guide you through it.
That's interesting. Huh. I'm gonna have to read more into this. Have to ask you for some links and such. All right. So hey Lisa, hey Tori, um, hey Tawny. Okay. So Lisa is asking for a card. So let me clear the cards. All right, Lisa, let's see here. So just take a deep breath in. Oh, there we go. And for you, I actually had a few cards jump out. So we've got these three here. Man, we've got people that have a whole bunch of cards jumping out. It's like a whole story. All right. So first, what we're going to start with is laziness, right? I think we all kind of have in our shadows some laziness. I feel like it's a little self-explanatory. So then we have the ring of Fastrada. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Um, it's an interesting name. I never heard of it before.
We'll have to pull out the book for that one. And then archons.
Okay. So from what I understand, with archons and narcissism, they're like bad entities, like parasites. Let's see. So what I pick up from the archon card is bad influences. Like there may be some bad influence of people around us, or um, just shadows that people need to work within themselves so they will not be led into the wrong path in their life. And what I have pick up off the laziness card is there could be times where we get so deep into our work that we end up procrastinating, and then we become so comfortable with it that we just forget all about our projects or shadow work within ourselves and such, and things need to be done. Let me see what I get from the ring of
So the Ring of Fastrada is associated with King Charlemagne. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the history of King Charlemagne, he's the one who kind of went after the Knights of the Templar. He's like the one, is that right? Or is he the one who went after the Viking kings? Hold on. I'm sure it'll say it right here. There was a time when the great King Charlemagne saved the serpent's eggs from poisoned toad. In return, the serpent gifted the king with a magnificent diamond. Charlemagne looked at the diamond with amazement. It was so striking that he had it set in a beautiful ring, which he then gave to his queen, Fastrada. But the king did not realize that the diamond had magical power. However, bore it was loved passionately by his cherished one. And as the legend has it, the king became madly in love with Fastrada, never wanting to be apart from her. But alas, the happiness did not last long, as she fell ill, and she knew that her life was coming to an end. Having realized the power of the ring, she removed it from her finger, and with her last breath hid it under her tongue. Charlemagne couldn't bear Fastrada's death. He refused to have her buried, and instead he placed her in the room, still refusing to leave her side. Things became bad as the king started to neglect important affairs of the state. Um, so it's saying that the meaning of the ring is conflict between will and addiction. So that goes back to what you were talking about with laziness, right? Binding, dependence, lack of power, lack of willpower. So Frustrada's ring and gluttony is like equal to like food addiction or sexual addiction, right? And that again, it pairs up well with archons. So I'd say here, you're being distracted by unnecessary pleasures in life that are making you lazy to getting your work done, and that these lazy pleasures are probably like creating demons to come in and make you feel like, because sometimes when you do bad things, right, like sometimes you get like a high off of it, even though it's like not right. I think sometimes, like, to me, that's how I relate to archons, is like those are those type of entities that come in and they like feed off of it, so you feel like some type of like a high or
Right.
something off doing something that is like hurting other people, or just is like a really dark behavior, right?
Really. I love how like when multiple cars come out, they can relate to each other. They're like, um, they're just encapsulating in a way. They're adjacent. That's the word.
Yeah. So Lisa is saying that she's got a narcissist that she needs to remove from her life, and that he's the lazy one. So yeah, and what's crazy is, and it almost sounds like you have that ring of Fastrada, right? Like that connection to that person. There's obviously some type of a love, right?
Right.
I think that can be hard sometimes, right? With love, we're taught like it's supposed to be unconditional, and it's great when it is, but sometimes when it's with, like, let's say someone who is a narcissist, and I don't want to say narcissists within themselves are bad people, but narcissists tend to have a lot of these archons attached to them, right?
Right.
So like they get these highs or these feelings, right? And they can be like create laziness and stuff, right? But then you're still like, oh, but you still keep them around because there's something that's pulling you to them. It's hard to break those ties. They're not simple, but you have to, because if not, I feel like those archons then like come into your life too, right? And like start to feed off of you and might change your behaviors as well.
Definitely. That's why another good reason to always cleanse daily. We take baths and whatnot, but we also have to remind ourselves to even clean our energy.
Yeah. Yeah, Lisa's saying, yeah, it's a love-hate relationship. Yeah. So yeah, I want help. It's hard. We do need help to let go of those bonds, right? Like doing cord cutting.
Right. Exactly.
Talking about cord cutting and selenite. Look at this sword I got. These are great for cord cutting. Let me help you, Lisa. Sending you some cord cutting energy to help you cut this narcissist from you and all those archons that have webbed itself around you. Let's cut off that ring of frustrada, right?
Something
I
on
hope that helps, Lisa. Go
Lisa.
take a salt bath. Hopefully that'll help let go of any of those cords that are, hanging off of you, or, you know.
I also have an advice for you, Lisa. Is it also is like the codependency can also like create that cord, it makes the cord stronger. So I'm thankful that Lee had cut that cord and sent that positive energy your way. It's also good to also look within yourself to understand why that codependency was there in the first place. And when you find out the root of that problem, don't be afraid to let that go and understand and face it.
I feel like as we went through the cards today, the how we use shadow work kind of changed, right? Like when we first started using it, was talking about balance, and the cards started kind of coming out a little bit more about the different shades of it, right? First, how we can work with entities with the shadows, and then it kind of took us into, because we had Beelzebub and Astroth. How do you pronounce her name again?
Astaroth.
Astaroth. You're like over there, like you are so butchering this.
I thought that was adorable.
And then you have the centaur, which I think is great. But then we kind of start to move into those other aspects, right? The shadow of the self, right? With our self-image in the mirror, and how those can create demons, right? Because those self-images might not be consistent to our actual self-truth. And then that's where ego, right, can become some mess. And then how we just, then we get into how love, right? How love is such a great thing, but it can also create its own shadows, right?
Yep.
Lisa is saying, yes, I know it has to be done. Thank you guys so much. You really pegged it. You're welcome. And Lisa, I think we got such a clear reading from you is because you were so much more open for us to allow to really pull a reading from you, because what you're going through and what everyone of you's kind of shown us here, right, through the shadows, that you guys are all going through major obstacles, right? So, kind of going back to how we started this, it is kind of like Satan's kind of showing up, right? Satan's showing up for those obstacles. And that is a big part, right? When a lot of people, even though this is not Satan himself, right, we associate these shadow symbols with Satan, right? Because it is of the shadows, but we shouldn't really fear the shadows, right? Because then that's when the shadows can control us.
Yes.
Right. I think a huge part of my understanding of Luciferianism and such is about taking that control back, so that you don't allow for fear to be able to control you.
Right.
Do I have that assumption right?
That's because you're taking control back, like you said. You're taking a stand that you are God in the flesh. You're taking that title back, and then you work through that through enlightenment, and getting back into that throne where you belong as the divine being, and understanding and that you are the divine, you are limitless being of light.
Yep. I love it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I know we're coming up on our time. Thank you so much, Javoni, for joining me on Mastering the Shadows, so that we could go in a little bit deeper into the darkness than what I normally go through by myself, right?
Thank you for having
and I think that's what I love about this, right? You guys, if you don't feel comfortable going into something new, it's great to reach out to someone that has a little bit more knowledge, right? Buddy systems are great. I love the buddy system anytime I do anything, right? And so thank you so much, Javoni, for joining me on Mastering the Shadows here over on the Spirit Realm Network. And the Mastering the Shadows is on the Spirit Realm Network every Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. USA Eastern Time. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Hey, Jessica, and thank you, Kathy, for joining. We are getting off, but I hope to see you next week. I believe Moon Girl is on right after me. I think she's doing some readings as well. And thank you again, Javoni. Do you have anything else you'd like to share to everyone who's tuned in?
We'll say, don't be afraid to face the shadows, no matter how hard it may seem, no matter how much pressure you feel, because like the pressure is what created diamonds.
Is that why Fastrada's ring was so powerful? That diamond had all that pressure pushed into it, right?
Oh yes.
Well, thank you everyone again. You guys have a fantastic full moon, because I didn't realize it was a full moon. So, energy is going to be high. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
See ya.